Hey everyone, welcome back to Waves of Change Women at Sea. Today I got to chat with Sabeena, a young and driven second officer of the watch and dynamic positioning operator working in the offshore industry. From the start, her passion and confidence really stood out. She speaks with so much energy and clarity. You can feel how much she cares about her work and helping other young women find their way in this industry. One of the things that really stuck with me was when she talked about the fear of the unknown. It's something so many of us feel, especially when stepping into a male dominated industry like maritime. But Sabina believes sharing real stories is what breaks that fear down. And she's right. When you hear someone else's journey, it makes everything feel a lot less intimidating. Her advice for young women entering the industry was so well thought out and practical. She laid out exactly what it takes: researching your options, finding mentors, navigating the certifications and training. But most importantly, she kept it real. She talked about the sacrifices, the challenges, and why it's worth pushing through anyway. What I loved most was her message. You might be the first, you might be the only, but that does not mean you're alone. This conversation left me feeling hopeful and excited for the future of women in maritime. I know you'll feel the same, so let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Sabeena. Hi, Sabeena. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Carla. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to our discussion today.
Okay, that's great. So we'll just go straight into it and kick off the questions. I hope you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. So I want to get a little bit about you. So can you share what initially inspired you to pursue a career in the maritime field, and exactly what is it that you do right now?
Sure, of course. So, when I was in high school, actually, my sister came across a posting in the newspaper. There was this committee, the Maritime Industry Development Committee. It was actually a government program. And this program was an 8-week internship that was aimed at both shore based and seagoing aspects of the industry. And it was being pushed to high school students to encourage them into the maritime industry. So at the time, I didn't have any knowledge of the industry. I didn't know anybody that worked there in my family or immediate circles. It was all very new to me. But I still decided to enroll just to see what it was about. So I spent 8 weeks in this program and I enjoyed every second of it. Everything about the industry was new to me. It was all very exciting. Ultimately, at the end of the program, I looked at all of the different routes that I could take and I decided that I wanted to have a seagoing career. So that was my first step. When I finished high school, that's kind of when I did a little more research and I decided, well, if I'm going out into the ships, I would like to be a ship's officer. And then I kind of took it from there and I went to university and everything. So I really do credit that program with my initial interest and kind of pushing me in the right direction. Unfortunately, I believe that program has been discontinued, but I really wouldn't have the career that I have right now if I didn't enroll in that program at the time. Because during my time in high school, we did have career days and stuff, but this career path was never really promoted or explained to me.
Uh-huh.
So I'm really grateful for that program, and that's really how I got the initial interest and started studying in this field.
Just a quick question there because this is really interesting. So there was a 8-week program when you were in high school on the maritime field that
Yeah,
got you into this.
yeah, it was a summer vacation program.
Oh wow! And who hosted it?
It was under the branch of government, which is like Ministry of Trade,
Yeah.
and they created that committee, and it was hosted by an individual who still works in the industry, Mr. Troy Prasad. He
Okay.
was really the coordinator, and he had some staff that was assisting him.
Mm-hmm.
And the program ran for a couple years. A few people actually went into the industry. Not everybody did because it didn't pique everybody's interest.
Mm-hmm.
But The program was incredible. We went to ports, shipping companies, we visited vessels, we went to the universities, we met people in the industry, all aspects of the industry. They came and spoke to us. It was like my first introduction to mentorship as well, because a lot of the people that I met there are people that I've actually come around again in my career and I've met up with, and they remember me from the program.
Oh, okay. That's really nice. There were a lot of people who signed up for it.
I think it was about 20 of us,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure how many people signed up because it was advertised in the newspaper. But we
Okay.
had to do like a written exam
Yeah.
and do an interview.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
I think they narrowed it down to a class of about 20 of us.
Okay. That's really interesting. I didn't even know something like that existed in Trinidad.
This
Um,
was in 2014, and I think it ran for a couple of years before it was discontinued.
okay. That's such a shame though that they stopped it. But what do you do now? What is your position?
So currently, I'm a second officer of the watch. I work in the offshore industry on offshore supply vessels, and I'm also a dynamic positioning operator. So within that capacity, my job is basically the safety and navigation of the vessel,
Mm-hmm.
as well as performing dynamic positioning operations. So within the offshore industry, what dynamic positioning is really is us being able to go alongside an offshore installation like a platform, drill ship, a rig, anything to that aspect, maybe even another vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And a dynamic positioning system, basically, in simple terms, allows you to keep the vessel in position using a computer system. And you, as the operator, just input certain movements and certain parameters,
Yeah.
and it keeps the vessel in a specific position to carry out the type of operation needed at the time. So, this is something separate from being an officer, but it's what I decided to pursue alongside my officer of the watch.
Ah, okay. So in addition to being an officer, you are also a dynamic positioning officer.
Yes, correct.
Okay, okay. And that sounds really interesting, the dynamic positioning, because I would think that the sea conditions outside, closer to rigs or these installations would be really bad. Can it be done manually?
It can be done manually, and it has been done manually in the past.
Yeah,
And in a worst case scenario where you have failure of computer systems or machinery,
yeah.
it it will have to be done manually to get the vessel out there safely. So that
Okay.
is your, like I said, worst case situation.
Hmm.
But the purpose of the vessel is just to hold it there. There are a lot of contingencies in place. The
Hmm.
system is very complex, and it actually adjusts based on the current weather and current conditions.
Okay, okay. Have you had any situations like that where you needed to step in, or any challenges while working with this system?
I think the challenges vary case to case.
Yeah.
Um, the challenges that you seem to encounter most are unfavorable weather conditions,
Mm-hmm.
or if the installation has certain restrictions on how and where you can approach.
Yeah, okay.
But these are you deal with them on a case by case basis. As with all operations, we usually do a risk assessment and see if there's anything that we can do to mitigate it. But
Yeah.
as the DPO, when you work offshore, you are within your right at any point to call off the operation. So you basically avoid getting into those tricky situations to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds really cool. Like really, really cool. So what key skills or qualities have contributed most to your success in navigating using the direct positioning or heavy traffic areas and these adverse weather conditions?
Well, when it comes to navigation in adverse weather or heavy traffic, I think the most important thing is your alertness. And it sounds very simple, but when you're on a bridge and sometimes you are by yourself, it's if it's a daylight watch,
Yeah,
it's very easy to get distracted or to lose focus. So
right.
when you are on a navigational watch, it's very important to remain alert, stimulate yourself, walk around the bridge, continuously try to observe your environment, make sure that there's nothing that you overlook. I think that is the most important skill. And
Mhm.
to accompany that, you need to have in-depth knowledge of the navigation equipment in front of you.
Mhm.
So, as an officer, when you go and you do your training, you train on generic machinery and you learn the theoretical part of it.
Okay.
But when you join a vessel, it's now your responsibility to study that make and model and see how that equipment works and how do you adjust it. Because the thing with navigational equipment is you have to fine tune it for the conditions that you're in at the moment, whether
Okay.
it's unfavorable sea, rain, you have sea spray, or if it's daytime or nighttime. So I
Okay.
think those are to me the most two important skills within navigation. With dynamic positioning, these skills are a bit different, and I think it really works on two major things: being able to observe your weather conditions and knowing your vessel and how it can react and what it is your vessel can accommodate. So every vessel has certain parameters that, okay, the vessel has enough power for this type of wind, for this type of current. The vessel can comfortably hold position under these conditions. And that is probably the most important thing that you need to know before you go on a DP operation.
Mhm. It sounds also very interesting because, as you say, you have to get a feel of each vessel that you go on, basically, because each vessel will be a little bit different.
Yeah, definitely. And for those two things, the most important skill is experience and learning from the experienced people around you. You can really study this and you can perform it in a simulator, but you really don't know what it's all about until you're actually out there doing it. And then you actually work with people who have been doing it for decades and you see the way that they handle the vessel and they have their certain techniques and stuff and you learn from them. I think that along with the studying the equipment, learning the weather, I think that is just as important for both navigation and dynamic positioning.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Okay, that's very interesting. So let's move on to something else. You are involved in organizations like the Nautical Institute and WIMAC. Can you just explain a little bit about these organizations and how they help your professional growth and your advocacy work?
Yes, of course. So WIMAC is Women in Maritime Association of the Caribbean, and
Okay.
basically that is a group that its main goal is to promote women in the maritime industry in both seagoing and shore-based aspects.
Okay.
The NI is basically a seafaring association. So they have one branch of the NI that handles DP operations. So it's actually an accreditation society,
Mm-hmm.
but it also forms an association that helps to continuously develop and assist seafarers by providing resources, guidance, and also networking.
Okay, okay.
So within the NI and the WIMAC, how it has been helpful to me is that it has actually really helped me to network and build relationships with other seafarers on an international level.
Mm-hmm.
It's really helped me seek mentorship and guidance. Also gives me, in some ways, a platform because under the NI, I have the ability to work. I've been given the opportunity to be on panels and webinars, but at the same time, I have the ability to work behind the scenes. So it gives you, both of these organizations really gives you a space to contribute and give feedback to other individuals that may be spearheading projects, all working towards the same goals at the end of it.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good work that they're doing, and that's so nice to know. I okay, so I know that you won Woman on the Rise as an award, and how has that impacted your career?
It definitely meant a great deal for me. The award specifically is awarded to somebody that is basically new on the horizon in the industry,
Yeah.
and it's like a sort of recognition. And with any sort of award or recommendation, it's very motivating. So
Mm.
at the time when they reached out to me and they explained it to me and offered it to me, it was very motivating. It really encouraged me to sort of keep working towards my long-term goals. The award actually also, it gave me a lot of visibility. So it gave me a chance in the beginning of my career to expand my professional network.
Nice. That's very, very good. So, I know you also contributed to Seaways magazine. So, I just want to ask, like, how do you use your writing or your public platforms to advocate for greater inclusion in the maritime industry?
Well, I believe that the most effective way to advocate for any sort of inclusion is by telling real stories.
Right.
So when you see women or any person really from an underrepresented group that share both their challenges and the successes on the other side of it, it eliminates that fear of the unknown of what to expect and what life at sea is like. Because the fear of the unknown is really a huge deterrent for people in making the decision to go and pursue a career at sea. So by sharing these sort of diverse experiences, it helps eliminate that fear of the unknown, and it also eliminates any sort of outdated stereotypes that may already exist in the industry that may discourage women from pursuing these careers. Because if you can see many women pursuing the careers, overcoming challenges, and having a success at the end of it, it will more pursue you to be like, okay, this might not be the easiest, but it's attainable. And outside of just seafarers and other women in the industry, when you share these types of stories, it influences other people, whether that be lecturers, crewing agents, shipping agents. It influences them and it helps to shape the perspective of women in the industry in general.
That was that was very well said. That's very well said. That how you put that across. I too believe that in the stories, like the real stories of what we actually go through or what women actually go through, it helps a lot. You know. So what are your thoughts on the current state of gender representation in the maritime industry? And what changes would you like to see in the near future?
Well, definitely, any time that I've been working on EC, I've seen a lot of change in the sense that I see a lot of females on board. I don't always get the opportunity to work to them, but they exist in the industry, and we're all sort of working our way up the ranks. When I first became a cadet, I didn't really, it took me a while before I actually met or worked with a female officer. So there are a lot of female officers right now that I've gotten the opportunity to work or interact with, and that alone I think is a huge step forward. I think things are changing, but it's definitely changing slowly. And I think the main issue is that people don't know about the career, or like I said before, it's the fear of the unknown. I think if we were to promote it and the people that have found success in the industry to kind of speak up about it, I think they would make it a little more um, interesting and a little more engaging for young women who are looking to seek more unique sources, unique types of employment. And I think not in any way to sugarcoat it, like I really don't agree that we should just be calling people out to sea and making it look like an ideal lifestyle. I think in the promotion of it, we need to also be very clear about the challenges that women can face and show that how they can be overcome at the same time.
I very much agree with that because we have to show the realistic side of it so that when women actually do go out to see or pursue a career, they know a, a bit more of what to expect and not taken by surprise. As you so wisely said, it's about the unknown or the fear of the unknown. Okay, so I wanna ask you if you can share something memorable or a defining moment in your maritime career that highlights the importance of your work. Your work as a seafarer, a very young seafarer at that, and also all your advocacy and all the things that you do to help promote women in the industry.
Well, I don't think that I have one like huge defining moment in my career just yet.
Yeah.
Maybe I haven't experienced it yet, but there has been moments of where I'm very like pleased and satisfied with my decision and excited. I guess something small that meant a lot to me really was sailing past the equator. So just like that moment at midnight, seeing us move from the northern to southern hemisphere. That really excited me, and I was like, "Wow, this is really interesting! Like, I can't believe I'm doing that." That's a moment that I probably stopped, and I was like, "I'm pretty glad I'm actually doing this job."
that
But in terms of huge defining moments, not really yet.
No, but that's
But
that's a little fun moment. It doesn't have to be. It was something memorable, and that's pretty cool. I don't think many people get to actually do that. Sail across the equator. So that's pretty cool.
something that was quite memorable for me, though, in terms of advocacy, is several years ago, I had a lady reach out to me, and she had a daughter that had expressed interest in this type of job. So
Hmm.
we spoke very candidly. I told her about what my career had looked like so far, the process of getting there, the things that I had to kind of work on, overcome, the challenges I faced. I was very real with her about what the job could look like in both the positives and the negative aspect of it. So we had that conversation, and then a couple years later, I had a cadet join a vessel I was working on, and it was her daughter.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, I saw her name, and I was like, this name sounds so familiar. So I went back into my email, and I saw her mom's name, and I saw the title, and I was like, oh, this is actually her daughter. Like, in the moment, I didn't even think, because I always try to offer advice, but seeing her actually come out to see it was like, it was unique. It was really unique
Oh,
and
nice.
memorable.
No, well, you're doing good work. I mean, you're helping women, helping younger people, and that's so great. Well, now I want to ask you about what advice would you give to young women aspiring to join the maritime sector? And you could specify about like in technical roles like yours, like a dynamic positioning officer or something like that. But what advice would you give young women?
Well, I would tell them to do their research. Like you said, there's not one exact role that you can take on a vessel. You can work as an officer. You can pursue a DPO career alongside being an officer. You can even work in the engine room, or you can even study electrical engineering and become an electrotechnical officer. There are a lot of different roles that you can work in the offshore and the greater deep sea industry. So it's up to you to really do your research and see what you think is most suited to your skills. But also be mindful that there is no singular route to enter this industry. So you can pursue university education and you can go through that route. You can pursue your foundational seafaring, your basic safety courses, and try to work your way up with experience. There are a lot of different licensing bodies that you can get a license under. You can get a UK license. If you have the resources and citizenship, you can get a United States license. There is not one singular path, and there is not one singular body that kind of controls the industry. So you need to do your research and see what's suitable for you, your circumstances, and what's going to get you where you want to be in the most safest and smoothest way. So once you have done that research and you figure out what role you want to fill and how you're going to get there, what I would say is to try to find a mentor. So look at people in the industry who inspire you and whose careers that you hope to emulate. Now, you can reach out to many people. Not everybody is going to respond, but there's always a few willing to give advice and guidance. So it's worth a try to at least see if you get some feedback. Now, if you can't find any mentors, and for me, when I was a student, outside of the internship program that I did, I didn't have the capacity to reach out to anybody that was actually in the industry and keep in touch with them. I didn't really have those contacts at the time. So what I did is I went online. So you can also use that as a resource. There are a lot of seafarers that have day in my life, like blogs and vlogs, and they talk about what they do every day and the type of vessel that they're on. And there's actually a lot of content out about this. So feel free to go in, look for your resources, and see, okay, well, this is what I think my life could look like. Maybe it could be similar to this. Not exactly the same, but maybe this could be a path that I can take. Secondly, to that is when it comes to your education and your training in this industry, you have to be very, very focused and very persistent in achieving certain goals, because there's a lot of classes, a lot of courses, and a lot of exams that can be overwhelming at times. So you have to, from the beginning, you have to be very focused and persistent on the education and training part of it. All of that being said, before you enter this industry, please remember that you're going to be away from home for long periods of time, and it may vary. Communication has gotten better over the years, but again, it may vary. So be ready and willing to make certain sacrifices necessary to make this type of career work. Now, I'm not saying this to anybody. I'm just saying it's better to prepare yourself now for what your life might look like. Now, at the end of the day, this is a very unique way to make your living. It gives you a very relaxed lifestyle when you're off the vessel, but just be mindful of the certain sacrifices that you would have to make along the way. As a female seafarer, you may be the first, you may be the only. Don't let that be a weight on your shoulder. Eventually, things will change. You may come across another officer, another cadet, maybe in another department, they'll have another woman, but you may be the first and you may be the only, and you'll have to learn how to find your footing being in that situation. It can be very intimidating to hold your own if you're on a crew and you're very brand new and you're the only female there, you may be the youngest on the boat. But it's not something that's so difficult that it's unachievable. A lot of women have done it, and it's just getting easier and easier for us. And you'd be pleasantly surprised at the number of women that are actually currently working on the water. So if you really truly want to do this, do your research, prepare yourself, commit to it. And once you have that certification in your hand, you'll have many avenues to carve out a successful career at sea. You can take it in many different directions. And in my experience, and in the experience of a lot of my peers as well, male and female, it's definitely well worth it in the long run.
Oh wow, Sabina, that was so well done. I wish that. Oh my gosh, I don't know. Do you have a blog that you could refer to? Because you touched on everything. I feel like anybody listening would have a much deeper understanding of what a career in the maritime sector is like, and how to prepare if you want to enter it. And wow, that was really well done. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, of course. I just wanted to touch on like my own experience. Like everything that I mentioned is something that kind of came up to me as a hurdle. Even with the like education and training, when I entered university, my first semester I had such a difficult time to keep up. And you really have to have a lot of grit, because this
Mhm.
is like you basically start brand new, because they don't teach you anything about this before you, like in school. Like you don't learn about trade and industry in that way. You don't learn about like the physics and the math of navigation. So you really have to be so focused. And like I tell all the cadets, because a lot of time you have cadets on board and they're trying to learn the vessel while simultaneously studying for the exams, and they all seem so overwhelmed. And I continuously tell them, you only have to do this a couple of times in your career. Just it's difficult, but you really just need to focus and study and make that sacrifice. And you need to do it at least 3 times in your career: officer, chief mate, captain,
Mhm.
and that's it. And then you can actually just do the job and enjoy the day-to-day aspects of being at sea. But you have to really have that focus in the beginning, because if you don't, it could really, really keep you back.
Wait, as just to clarify, as you mentioned there, you have to do those exams 3 times. So to enter as an officer, then as a chief officer and as a captain, so it's basically new exams you have to do.
Yes. So as an officer, you are doing basically operational level.
Mm-hmm.
So the exams are within our operational role. But when you go on to chief mate, you actually have to do further study, which is now management level. And
Okay.
then the syllabus for both chief mate and captain are very similar management level stuff you'll be doing.
Okay. Okay. That's thanks for clearing that up. Well, I mean, Sabina, thank you very much. Do you have anything that I didn't ask that you may like to add before we close off?
No, I think you definitely covered all of the major questions that a lot of people have about getting into this industry.
Yeah, and you did such a wonderful job explaining everything. Thank you so much for this. This has been a pleasure. And you are so organized and in your thoughts and the way you put things across. It's very, very admirable. So thank you so much for doing this with me, Sabina. I very much appreciate it. You have some wonderful advice, and I think that anybody listening who wants to get into the field would be better off for having listened. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think this podcast is something that is definitely needed because, like I said, one of the best ways to get rid of that sort of deterrent about going out at sea is to talk about it. And what's a better way to talk about it than speaking with people working in industry, sharing their experiences?
Well, well, yes, exactly. So again, thank you, and I hope to keep in contact and hear more about you soon. I'll look out for your articles and things like that, and your soon to be blog, hopefully.
I will see about that. But thank you so much as well.
Thanks for tuning in to Waves of Change Women at Sea. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you would take a moment to subscribe or leave a review. It really helps get the word out and honestly keeps this little podcast afloat. Until next time, stay inspired and keep making waves.